This is one of those stories where if we didn't have video of it, you wouldn't believe it's true. It sounds like a yo mama joke. Like I could imagine hearing this on the playground in the 90s. Yo mama's so fat when she backs up, she beeps. Yo mama's so fat when she goes to the movies, she sits next to everybody. Yo mama's so fat that when she orders a cab, they send a semi truck. I saw a lot of takes on this story, but none from the perspective of an Uber driver. And what the driver in this video did so wrong is hands down one of the most important life lessons I ever learned driving Uber. And I'm not just saying that to make this video sound more important than it is. So I hope you stick around to find out. But in case you missed it, this story starts when a Detroit fitness influencer named Dank DeMoss called herself a Lyft. And then this happened.
Well, what you saying?
Yeah, I got no space at mom. My car is small.
I can fit in this car.
No, believe me, you can.
Yes, I can.
Believe me. So, I'm sorry.
What I'm gonna do about my money?
I'm gonna cancel you. You're not gonna be charged.
So you telling me I can't get in the lift because I can't fit in your car?
Yeah, you need to order a bigger car.
What makes you think I can't fit in the car?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
What makes you think I can't fit in this car?
Because the car is small in the back. Believe
My
me.
best friend has a Benz that's newer than this that I can fit in. That's the same size.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't.
So you really telling me I'm too big to get in your car? So I gotta order another lift.
Yeah. And to be more specific with you, I got very tired.
What I got to do with your tires?
Yeah, and you have no space.
How you know I don't have no space?
Yeah, I got no space in the back. Believe me.
How do you know I don't have no space?
Because I tried before.
Huh?
Because I've been in this situation.
So every big person you turn down because they can't fit in your car?
Yeah, because they need to order the Uber XL instead.
No, I don't never have to order an Uber XL.
Then I'm really sorry.
What's your name?
Abraham Curtis.
Okay.
Now, you might be wondering just how big this woman was, and I think it's important to clarify because this isn't about overweight people ordering Ubers in the sense that this isn't about someone that could lose 20 or 50 or even 100 pounds. This woman weighs 498 pounds, and by the looks of her social media, she doesn't see anything wrong with that. To put 498 pounds in perspective, the mass capacity for my Honda Civic is 850 pounds, spread throughout the entire car. And I'm not saying that to be mean, I'm just saying that in the context of the video. And what's even crazier to me about that video, the person who posted it wasn't some bystander, it wasn't a Lyft driver trying to defend himself. This woman was the one that posted this video and called attention to it. Like, if it was me, I would be mortified. I wouldn't want anyone to hear about this. I'd probably stop eating for 2 weeks and just live at the gym. I would be so embarrassed. What kind of world do we live in where posting a literal fat joke about yourself, an unbelievable fat joke at that, about yourself is seen in a positive light? Look, I'm not pro bullying, but it's like, maybe we could use a little constructive criticism. Just because we're not pro bullying doesn't mean that we have to be pro the things we were bullying people for. But the plot gets even thicker. I'm sorry. I mean, the story gets even heavier. I mean, look, it gets better.
It looks like a Lyft might be hurting pretty soon, too.
I knew it was illegal and I knew that it was wrong.
Her attorneys, John Marco and Zach Runyon, say weight is a protected characteristic in Michigan by law.
It would be no different than a driver pulling up and saying, I don't want to have black people in my car, or I don't want to have Christians in my car, or Muslims in my car. It's the same. Under the law, it's the same.
The lawsuit is filed.
The woman is suing Lyft for discrimination. My first thought when I heard this lawyer say this was, I should have went to law school. If that can fly, if this guy can make bank from some lawsuit to Lyft over that ridiculous logic, man, I would, like, come on. Do you know how foolish that argument is? The difference between being heavy in a car
and being black or Christian in a car is being black or Christian doesn't have any effect on the car. It's called physics. It's called weight. It's called gravity.
I don't know what car this driver have, but me personally, I have a Honda Civic. And the maximum load a Honda Civic can take is 850 pounds, spread throughout the whole car. You can imagine if you put 500 pounds in one seat on one wheel, how it might have a bit of an effect.
Like I said, that was my first thought. My second thought, when I actually looked into it, I found something pretty interesting.
Michigan is the only state that has weight covered under discrimination laws. That's why the lawyer was clear in saying that in the eyes of the law. Every other state has the typical, for lack of a better term, discrimination laws regarding race, religion, disability, age, what have you. And even if those states don't, those things are protected on a federal level.
But in Michigan, it's the only state that also includes weight, which makes me wonder, like, how did that come about? My first thought is, when that bill was coming through, some congressperson was probably like really fat and was like, hey, what about me? Or perhaps they had a spouse or a kid, and instead of encouraging the kid to eat healthy and exercise, they'll just say, hey, I'm a congressman. I can just protect you under law. Go ahead. Here's a Twinkie.
So this is straight from the state of Michigan's website explaining the law. And there's a lot of elements to this, like the fact that weight it is included in equal opportunity employment, but it's not under any other categories. But as you see, the law says it applies to places made available to the public. It's just another example of how the law has not caught up to the digital world that we're living in, and I think that's what these lawyers are capitalizing on. The service of Uber is made available to the public, but the place that the Uber happens in my personal vehicle isn't a public place. Every individual driver is accepting and declining rides as he or she sees fit.
Lyft isn't a public facility. If it was a city bus and the city bus was like, I'm sorry, you're too big, we can't take you, then I think the lawsuit holds up there. And I'm just playing armchair lawyer here, obviously. But the weird thing about that is you go on a bus, and every city bus I've ever been on has a sign that says somewhere max capacity 50,000 pounds or whatever it is, right? So there is a limit because weight actually has a physical effect on the world, and it's not like those other things. There is like a literal limit that it would break a city bus. So honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this ridiculous lawsuit ends up having the law amended as a consequence rather than paying this woman out, which, man, actually what's probably really going to happen is
They're going to settle out of court, because even more important than the law to Lyft is that this is a PR nightmare. I mean, even if they won that lawsuit, it would probably hurt them more. Imagine the headlines if they took it to court and actually won. Lyft wins lawsuit. Driver can reject riders based on weight. Now, nobody's going to use Lyft because if they're a few pounds overweight, they'll be worried they're going to get rejected for a ride. Granted, that's not at all what happened here, but it's the way it might look to some people. Sometimes the way it looks is the most important thing, and I don't even have to explain the irony on that one. I mean, Lyft has already apologized to her at least twice. The first time saying, we don't condone discrimination of any kind, and we're committed in making this right for you. At this point, that kind of apology has to be like a PR template for businesses. And then the next comment, anyone who's ever dealt with Uber and Lyft really shouldn't be surprised at all. We're disheartened to look at this driver's unacceptable behavior. Please DM us and we'd like to address as soon as possible. Just cutting the driver loose.
the fact that Lyft just totally cuts this driver loose, and it's like, yeah, listen, bud, we know it's your car. If she did ruin it, you're going to be on the hook for the repairs. We're not going to help you for that. But yeah, despicable. You asked this guy to show up in his own car and just take anyone? Like, what if there was 4 people that woman's size? Technically, we're supposed to take 4 people, right? So I guarantee you 4 people that size. When there's 4 adult men in average shape, I can feel my car close to dragging. Here's the thing that people need to realize. Do you really think this Lyft driver wanted to drive 10 or 15 minutes to the pickup location, not getting paid for that, show up and not take a fare? Like, do you think he wanted it to go that way? Or do you think he wanted to have a passenger so he could get on the way and start making money? Because again, he doesn't get paid on the way there. Okay. And then by canceling that ride, he has to wait for another request and then drive to the other request. So all this time of not getting, like, do you really think he wanted that to happen? He's obviously doing that because that's what he knows to be best for him and his car. Every time someone like gets canceled on in an Uber and they're like, "Oh, he shouldn't have canceled it." It's like he didn't want that. The world isn't out to get you.
That said, this driver made a huge mistake, and his mistake was being honest with this woman. Something I learned driving Uber that I still apply to my daily life: you don't have to engage with people, even if they're engaging you, even if you feel like they have wronged you, and you don't owe anyone an explanation. I can't tell you a specific moment when I realized this, but there were numerous times in my Uber where I found myself trying to justify something to my passenger. Or what made this lesson even more obvious to me was when my passenger was trying to justify something to me. Like, I kept thinking, why does this guy care so much about what I think? And it's not like it was like a real heated argument. It was something trivial, like where the pickup was supposed to be, or why I can't take 5 people in my car, or something like that. And it's a natural inclination to engage with people, especially when they're face to face with you, engaging you. But one day I realized, like, after this ride is over, I'll probably never see this person again. Why am I wasting my energy engaging in a non favorable way? Now, it sounds cold. You don't owe anyone an explanation, but there's a caveat to that where I think people get lost. You don't owe anyone an explanation, but the more explanation you offer to someone indicates how much you care about that relationship. If I was on my way to pick up a random Uber rider and I started feeling sick, I'd just cancel the ride on the app and head home. But if I was on the way to pick up a friend and I started feeling sick, I'd give him a call and apologize and explain the situation and see if there's any other way I could help. I could have very well just texted my friend and said sorry, not picking it up, or just not shown up at all. But in the long run, because I care about that relationship, I don't want to burn that bridge. But the point I'm trying to make is you aren't obligated to build bridges with every single person you come across, especially somebody that you didn't start off on the right foot. And it can be tricky because you don't want to be dishonest. But think about it like this driver didn't even have to say anything. He could have just driven away. Sure, that would have seemed rude, but in retrospect, I bet right now he wishes rude is the only thing he was being called. I actually did that one time. I pulled up to a woman and I had a feeling she was going to be a problem. So I canceled the trip and simply drove right past her. The problem was there was no way out of that neighborhood except by turning back around and driving back past her house again. And she was still outside. And when I drove past, she called me some not so nice things. Some of you know that story from my book, Death Threats in the Uber Pool, audible link in the description. But telling little white lies to avoid confrontation with people you don't know, that flies in my moral code. I was talking to an Uber driver once who told me how he goes about canceling rides he doesn't want to take. I wish I had the guts to do this, but I just don't. He said that when he shows up and it turns out he doesn't want to take the ride for whatever reason, he tells the rider that he's been suffering from bouts of explosive diarrhea and the feeling just came on, and then asked to use their bathroom in order to relieve himself. Of course, they say no, and then he has an easy out saying, "Oh, well, I'm sorry, I need to go find a gas station or a wooded area or something. I have to cancel the trip." Now, imagine if this driver said that to the big lady. Instead of all this ridiculousness, she would have had a really funny story to tell about why her Uber driver canceled on her. But again, this driver made the grave mistake of being honest. And that's the irony of this whole thing. I think about all the people in this story. The lawyers coming to her aid, Lyft reaching out and apologizing. I even saw an Uber YouTuber who was almost always defending drivers come to the woman's side.
We should only show her love and support on this one. And that driver, in my eyes, just my opinion, you trash, bro.
None of these people actually care about her. Now look, I'm not saying the Lyft driver cared about her either. I'm just saying he's the only one who respected her enough to be honest. And what happens when you surround yourself with people who show you love and show you support, even when what you're doing is detrimental to your health? What happens when you surround yourself with all that misguided empathy is that you can't build any self-awareness.
It's like my mind don't know that I'm this big. My mind does not know that I'm this big. So I be feeling like I can do everything. So when I walk in the gym, I feel like I'm fit. Or like if I'm trying to do certain shit, I feel like I could do it. And then I be like, damn, I can't do this shit. But in my head, I'm like, damn, I can do that. So I'm gonna walk over there.
And when you lack self-awareness, you don't know what you need to change in order to get better. The trick is surrounding yourself with people who you can trust to be honest with you about the things that matter, and knowing who you can be honest with that will receive it in the way you intend it. And it's almost certain that that kind of honesty has no place in an Uber or a Lyft. Man, I wasn't planning on getting so deep at the end there, but I guess heavy lesson for a heavy topic.